Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and I'm an attorney that assists dental associates with employment contract and independent contractor agreement issues. Today I'm going to talk about the biggest risks in dental associate contracts. So, what are some kind of frequent problems that dental associates may fail to identify with an initial review of the contract, and then what I go over with them with some solutions as well. First would be compensation. I think a daily rate is probably the most common way of compensating a dental associate. Second would be some kind of percentage of collections. So for a dental associate, usually somewhere between 30 to 35% of collections would be a standard amount. Now, the biggest risk for any dental associate being paid via percentage of collections is not having a guaranteed amount for a period of time. Let me give you an example. You should never enter into a position where you're paid immediately based on collections, meaning from the day you step in, you get 35% of whatever is collected for several reasons. One, it takes time to build a practice up. And this is just a cost of doing business for a dental practice. And so the dental associate shouldn't be penalized in the beginning of their career or in their tenure with a practice when they are building a practice or getting used to the workflow or with the assistants or hygienists or whoever is there. So you want to make certain that there is a guaranteed amount or a guaranteed daily rate for at least 6 months. And then you could transition into a percentage of collections. Another risk associated with collections-based comp is it takes time for the practice to capture any insurance claims. And so if you're in a practice with a heavy payer mix slanted towards private insurance, some practices are much better than others at getting paid quickly, but others are very slow. And so if it takes 45 days for the average insurance claim to be paid out, which would be on the high side, but let's just use that as an example, you're not going to get paid for 45 days if you're on pure collections, and that's it. So you could be working for a month and a half and not have any revenue coming in if you don't have a guaranteed daily rate or a base salary that's guaranteed for a period of time. Last biggest risk is if you are paid on collections, you have to be absolutely certain that there's language that says you will get any of the collections for any claims that come in after the contract terminates. And let me give another example. So let's say the average, we'll use 45 days again as the average amount of time from when you do have an encounter to when the practice receives the money. If you give notice, usually somewhere between 60 to 90 days. Now let's say you're working the last month with the employer. Well, you're working for 30 days, but they're not going to get any of that money for 45 days. And if the contract says you get no more money after the contract is terminated, you have essentially worked for free for a month. So you want to make absolutely certain that there's language in the contract that says you will get credit for any collections that come in after the date of termination. I would say a minimum of 90 days, but ideally it would be anything that's collected after the date of termination. Okay, next big risk would be an overly restrictive covenant, more specifically a non-compete or a non-solicit. You don't want to be completely boxed out of working, where you live or what city you're in. For some people, this is extremely important. If they grew up there, they have family there, the kids go to school there. Now, if, maybe you're just out of school and you're younger and don't have ties to an area, the non-compete might not be a big deal, but for many, it's a huge deal. So you want to make certain that it's as narrow as possible. No more than a year, no more than 5 to 10 miles from your primary practice location. If you're working in a DSO or corporate dental that has many, many locations in a city, you don't want the non-compete to attach to every single location they have, especially if you haven't provided services in those locations. So narrowing the non-compete is very important and can be a big risk if it's not narrowed. One-sided termination. So for instance, if you have to give 180 days notice and they don't have to give you any notice. That is obviously completely unfair. You want a shorter notice period. 60 to 90 days would be like a standard notice period, meaning you tell the practice, or I guess you'd have to submit a written resignation letter, but you say, I'm terminating the agreement, then you would work out those 60 days and then you're free to go after that. If you have to provide 180 days notice, which I see frequently, you have to think, all right, the relationship immediately changes as soon as you give notice and you're about to leave. So are they going to start, throttling your patients so you're not getting any new consults or any new patients? And if you're on collections and there's no language that says they cannot cut your schedule or cut your patient flow, you could be stuck in a situation where you're in the practice for 6 months and they just are slowly, letting you die in the vine. So making certain that it's a shorter notice period, that it's the same for both parties, and they can't, kind of squeeze off your patient flow so that you essentially are making almost no money towards the end of the notice period. Then last thing would be tail cost. If you have a claims made policy, then who pays for tail insurance is important. It's not prohibitively expensive for a dentist, but somewhere between $6,000 to $7,000 would be a general tail cost. And so that's something you can negotiate and have the employer pay for. All right, those are the biggest risks in dental associate contracts. If you have any questions about your employment agreement or independent contractor agreement, feel free to contact my law firm at the information listed below in the description. And I appreciate you watching the video. All right, thanks. Take care.